Blessed be your name in a land that is plentiful, where streams of abundance flow. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name, found in the desert place, or walk through the wilderness. Blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. And when the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be your name, when the sun's shining down on me, when the world's all as it should be. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name, on the road marked with suffering, there was pain in the offering. Blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. And when the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Give and take away. You give and take away. My heart will choose to say, Lord, blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name.
Blessed be your name, Jesus, this morning. Good morning, Laurel Church. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Just know that everybody loves you and appreciates what you do each and every day. And we're going to lead ourselves off to the cross here.
Savior, I come, quiet my soul. Remember redemption's hill, where your blood was spilled for my ransom. Everything I once held dear, I count it all as lost. Lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me on my knees, Lord, I lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. Oh, leave me. Lead me to the cross. You were as I, tempted and tried. Human, the Word became flesh, borne my sin and death. Now you're risen, everything I once held dear. I count it all as lost. Lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, I lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. Oh, lead me to your heart. 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 Lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, I lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. Oh, lead me to the cross.
So, I've noticed the last few weeks that I keep asking for things to change, things to be different, government leaders to make different decisions. But I think this song speaks more to the heart of the matter. I need to change myself from the inside out. I can only do that with Christ's help. Because I can tell you, I'm fighting it. But I need to see things as Jesus sees them. Maybe we all do.
1,000 times I've failed, so your mercy remains. Should I stumble again, still I'm caught in your grace everlasting. Your light will shine when all else fades, never ending. Your glory goes beyond all fame. Will above all else, my purpose remains. The art of losing myself in bringing you praise everlasting. Your light will shine when all else fades, never ending. Your glory goes beyond all fame. My heart and my soul, Lord, I give you control. Consume me from the inside out, Lord. Let justice and praise become my embrace, to love you from the inside out. Will above all else, my purpose remains. The art of losing myself in bringing you praise everlasting. Your light will shine when all else fades, never ending. Your glory goes beyond all fame. My heart and my soul, will I give you control. Consume me from the inside out, Lord. Let justice and praise be become my embrace, to love you from the inside out. Everlasting, your light will shine when all else fades. Never ending, your glory goes beyond all fame. And the cry of my heart is to bring you praise from the inside out. Lord, my soul cries out. My heart and my soul, but I give you control. Consume me from the inside out, Lord. Let justice and praise become my embrace, to love you from the inside out. Everlasting, your light will shine when all else fades. Never ending, your glory goes beyond all fame. And the cry of my heart is to bring you praise from the inside out. Lord, my soul cries out from the inside out. Lord, my soul cries out.
We'll be back in a little bit. You may be seated. Sorry, an old joke, but I just can't stop myself.
Rob, you can't stop that joke until all of this is over. You gotta just keep doing this joke. I love it. Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Mother's Day. All of the wonderful, strong, beautiful mothers out there, we value you, we honor you, we celebrate you, we love you. I just want to do a special shout out to my bride, Angie Rose. You are such a wonderful mama. And our two babies, and soon to be the third baby that we'll be able to hold and love, are so blessed to have you as their mom. Also, a shout out to my mom, aka the Gladiator, who raised and dealt with all of this and all of the shenanigans that I brought as a kid. Mama, thank you so much for loving me. You're a wonderful mom. As well as thank you to my beautiful mother-in-law, Sandy, who may be even listening to this right now in Bozeman. So love you, Mama Sandy. To all the mothers out there, we love you so much. Have a great Mother's Day. Hey, this morning's going to be a little bit different. I know sometimes, I write in, a joke or a reference or a story or kind of something to kind of ease our way into a text to create some sort of connection, some sort of opportunity to really relate with one another before we dive in. But this morning, I believe that there's no intro necessary because on one way or the other, in one degree or another, we're all able to really connect with each other this morning. Hold on really quick. Is my mic on? It's on? Okay, cool. Sounds good. Hey, church, I'm so glad you guys are here. Hey, even though there are so many imperfections, we serve a perfect God. Am I right? Amen. Okay. All right, message over. No. There's no way to really intro this connection because I believe that this connection, this relation that we have with one another of going through valleys, that we all can relate. We all can testify to the fact that what it means to be human, living in a broken, sinful, messy world, living with the reality of sin both around us and in us, we can all testify to the fact that we walk through valleys. And this morning, in part 4 of our series, Where Are You?, We're going over Psalm 23, verse 4. And David writes, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And we're going to break apart this verse this morning. But even though that this is just verse 4 and part 4 this morning, we still have more weeks to dive through Psalm 23. I want to go back into the title of the series, Where Are You? And I just want to ask the question, where are you this morning? To the listeners that are listening right now and those who are listening to this later after we post it and share it and publish it, where are you? Because you may be finding yourself in a valley right now. You may find yourself in a hard time right now. You may find yourself in the shadow of death itself right now. Where are you? Maybe you find yourself going through a valley financially or relationally, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You may find yourself going through a valley. And for those of you, when I ask, where are you? And your response is, honestly, I'm right here. I'm doing all right. I'm doing fine. I'm not really in a valley right now. I want you to do two things. One, I want you to take this message and deposit it in your spiritual banking account, in your spiritual savings. Because there will be a rainy day where you need to pull the encouragement and the truths from this message, all rooted in Scripture, because one day you will go through another valley again. So pull from that spiritual savings account. You're going to need this. Save this for a rainy day. But the other thing I want you to do, if you find yourself not through a valley right now, is I want you to be praying constantly, even throughout this message, for those people that you know of that are going through the valley. I want you to be praying for them. I want you to be lifting them up. For those of you who find yourself going through the valley of the shadow of death this morning, as I was praying for you, as I was thinking about you all week, as I was wrestling with God through this passage with you in mind, I really felt like God put 3 words of encouragement on my heart that I have to share with you this morning. And I've been waiting to share these words of encouragement with you this morning for most of the week. And the first word of encouragement that I really felt like God gave me and that I want to give you, I want to share and encourage with you this morning is this word. That your valley is not your destination. That your valley is not your destination. See, when David writes the valley of the shadow of death, there's an image that pops into mind. Because when you're in a valley, you are surrounded by hillsides. You are surrounded by mountains. You are surrounded everywhere you look because you're in a valley. And then David writes that in this valley that there is this shadow that death casts and that you may find yourself in. So what is the shadow of death that you're in today? It may not be death itself, but it may be a shadow that it casts. What shadow do you find yourself in today? It may be the shadow of illness. That no matter how hard you try, you can't shake your physical state. You can't mend yourself better. The health that you want improved, that you want to be back, it's not coming back. That the things that you used to be able to do, you no longer can do. You find yourself in a physical state of being through a valley in the shadow of illness, in the shadow of physical brokenness. And you've just had it. Maybe you're in the shadow of loss. Maybe you yourself, you have not experienced death itself, but you have loved ones in your life that have experienced death, that have passed through death, that loss is all around you. That a loved one has passed away. That a child has passed away. That people that you never would expect their time to come to an end on this earth, when it did, it did. And it left you shattered. It left you brokenhearted. It left you walking through a valley for years at this point. Maybe the shadow that you find yourself in is the shadow of depression. That this joy that you're trying to muster up, that as a Christian we may feel like this weird guilt of like, wait a minute, but the joy of the Lord's my strength, but I just don't feel this joy. I don't feel this happiness. I know the promises. I recite the promises. I read the promises. I declare the promises. I sing the promises of God, but yet I'm just battling through this mental state of anxiety and this mental state of depression. Maybe this is a shadow that you're in. Maybe there's a relationship that you have in your life. It's in the shadow of death. It's in a shadow as you walk through this valley. Maybe your marriage is in the shadow. And all Satan wants to do is rip you two apart. Because marriage on this earth is the most symbolic to our union with God. It's beautiful, it's precious, it's powerful. So of course, Satan wants marriages to be ripped apart. That what Jesus said as he echoed the command and the design of God, if let what God brought together, let not man separate, of course. Satan wants that separation, of course. He wants you in a shadow, wanting this shadow to be casted upon your marriage. Maybe you find yourself with a loved one that you just can't seem to reconcile. It's going through a valley. You find yourself in a shadow. I don't know what shadow you find yourself in, but I want to encourage you that the valley is not your destination. Because the way that David intentionally wrote and described the situation that he was going through is he wrote with this description, that even though I find myself in a valley, I'm walking through the valley. And I want to remind you and encourage you this morning that if God brought you to it, he is faithful to bring you through it. That if God has allowed it, he will give you his strength for you to endure it. You will get to the other side. And it may be a valley that lasts your entire lifetime, but even our short lifetime here on earth compared to endless glory with God, this is but a moment. It is but a valley. You will get to the other side. Your valley is not your destination. When reading through the scriptures, I'm reminded that this narrative, this biblical narrative, is full of people, of examples that have walked through valleys of the shadow of death. I think of Joseph, right? I got my name after this man named Joseph. Actually, I got my name from Sloppy Joe's. It was the Spolstra household favorite. But I'm reminded of Joseph. He was a young lad, but he dreamt this dream of reigning and ruling and having his brothers bow down before him. Now what Joseph did is he kind of went, hey, big brothers, one day you're going to bow before me. And I think it was pumped, but he could have probably relayed that dream and have it be a little more palatable than the way that he did that, because his brothers wanted to kill him and then settled and compromised and ended up selling him as a slave. Then Joseph, as a slave in Potiphar's household, he said, you know what, this is the valley I'm in. This is the current state of circumstances that I find myself this morning. I'm going to be faithful in where I'm at. I'm going to be faithful in what God's given to me, because I know that my ultimate boss and whoever I work for, yes, it's the person I work for physically, but it's God that I do these things to honor him wherever I'm at. And so Joseph honored God in Potiphar's household. Potiphar loved him. He was a man of integrity, so much so that when Potiphar's wife wanted to have sex with Joseph, Joseph said, no thanks. How could I do that to Potiphar? How could I do that with God? How could I do that to him? And so then he was framed, wrongfully framed, and then thrown into prison, where there he just said, hey, obviously I'm at the bottom of the pit, but I'm going to be faithful in where God has me. I'm going to be faithful in what he's given to me. and he rose to be highly favored in prison. Then the baker and the cupbearer, they had dreams, and they got released, and the baker died, and the cupbearer was able to be restored back to his position. These are all dreams that David interpreted and that he foresaw the outcomes in. Finally, the cupbearer remembers when the king, the Pharaoh of Egypt, had a dream. He remembers Joseph, and Joseph gets called out of prison. And Joseph rises up to second in command in all of Egypt because he was able to interpret Pharaoh's dream. He was able to strategize a game plan to have Egypt be able to last and endure through a famine and be a source of provision for surrounding countries. Egypt made it through because of Joseph, and Joseph was esteemed to be second in command. Do you know that it was 14 years after Joseph had the dream of being in command before he was actually installed as commander, second in command over all of Egypt? 14 years of going through a valley before the dream came true. In Psalm 105, verse 19, it says this in the NLT. It says, until the time came to fulfill his dreams, the Lord tested Joseph's character. Maybe right now the valley you find yourself in is that you have a dream. You have a God-given dream. You have a God-given vision. But right now you're going through the valley. That God's given you big dreams. He's given you big vision. But yet you have so little, and you have so little opportunity. I want to encourage you, just as Joseph did, be faithful in the little, and God knows you will be faithful in the much. Be faithful in the valleys, and God knows then if you're faithful in the valleys that you'll be faithful on the mountaintops. Be faithful, because God is faithful to lead you through the valley. And maybe you find yourself in a valley of refinement so that when your dreams and your visions and your prayers do come true, that you're able to handle the opportunity, handle the responsibility, and handle the influence, just as Joseph went through the valley in order to handle the authority given to him in Egypt. But it was 14 years from receiving the dream to having the dream become realized. I even think of the nation of Israel. From the moment that Abraham was promised land to the moment that they crossed the Jordan and entered into promised land out of captivity from Egypt and wandering in the wilderness, that time was 400 years approximately. About 400 years. Even when delivered out of Egypt to then crossing over the Jordan, that was 40 years of being tested, of being refined, of learning how to trust God in the desert, how to trust God in the wilderness. That's 40 years. 40 years of going through the valley. I'm reminded of Jesus himself. Jesus, besides events leading up to his birth and being brought to the temple on the 8th day, and also when he was 12 years old, I don't know, when Mary lost the Son of God. Like, imagine what was going on in her mind, right? Like, happy Mother's Day, Mother Mary, right? Like, oh, I just lost the Son of God. Oh, boy. Jesus was in the temple, reasoning and teaching with the teachers. Hey, Mama, don't you know I need to be in my Father's house? But besides his birth, his dedication, and being in the temple at 12 years old, we know nothing really of Jesus' upbringing all the way until he's about 30 years of age. I mean, talk about the valley of being relatively unknown. I mean, this is God putting on skin and bone. This is God dwelling and living amongst us. That creator God of the universe humbled himself to be a person, a human, a man, and actually visited and lived on this planet that we live on today. And yet he was unknown for most of his life, under the radar, going through a valley. And I'm reminded of when he was wrongfully accused and sentenced to die a criminal's death, though he knew no sin. He never sinned and was accused to die as a criminal on a cross. Hebrews 12:2 says that for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. For the joy set before Jesus, he was able to endure the cross. for what was going to happen on the other side of his valley, it gave him the perspective and the strength with joy to go through the valley. Jesus knew that his valley on the cross was not his destination. His destination was to be back with his Father, alive, resurrected, glorified, and victorious. And I think what also brought him joy was that he knew that with his death and resurrection, he would set free the captives, he would forgive the rebels, and he would make a way where there was no way for us to be reconciled with God again by grace, by God's loving gift. Faith, then, is all that is asked of us, to believe and to become this message that Jesus was able to deliver and finalize in his body, his life, his death, his resurrection. That for the joy set before Jesus, he was able to endure the cross. He was able to endure the valley. I believe God will lead you to a mountaintop, even if the mountaintop is in heaven itself, in his presence. But just know that the periodic mountaintop experiences, moments, and seasons in life, I feel like is God's gift that he gives us so that we can look back on the valleys that we've walked. And with higher altitude and elevation, we're able to look back and it gives us a greater perspective of the valley that we just walked through. But the mountaintop experiences of peace and blessing and rest, that gives us the perspective to look back and say, whoa, these were the lessons I learned in the valley. Whoa, I was able to make it through with God's help. Whoa, God, you were with me the entire time. And these sprinkled in periodic mountaintop experiences, it gives us not only the perspective as we look in the valley, but really it reminds us that much of our life is lived in the valley. On this side of heaven, most of life is lived through some sort of valley. But just know that it's not your destination. The other word of encouragement I just really felt like God given to me, and I want to just relay to you, is that your greatest power is his presence. Your greatest power is his presence. David not only writes about going through the valley of the shadow of death, but then he says, I will fear no evil because you're with me. You're with me. It is a lie straight from hell. It is a scheme straight from Satan for you to think and believe that you are alone, that you have been abandoned, that you have been forsaken. That is not true. That is a lie from Satan himself. David, he knew that, you know what? I could be honest with God about what I'm going through. I can be honest. And when you look through the Psalms, David was brutally honest with God. Like he was not afraid to vent, to express his frustrations, his feelings, his emotions. But David knew that in God's presence, he could be free to be who he was, knowing that God was with him. One of my favorite other Psalms as an example of knowing that, you know what? This is really what I feel. This is really what I'm going through. But God, in acknowledging these things with you, I acknowledge that you are really with me. One of my favorite Psalms, other than Psalm 23 of this reminder, is Psalm 13. Let me read it to you. Again, this is in the NLT. David writes this, O Lord, how long will you forget me? Forever? Time out. I love David. He's a drama queen. He's emotional. And that right there, in just a few words, describes this guy right here. God, how long will you forget about me? Forever? How long will you look the other way? How long must I struggle with anguish in my soul, with sorrow in my heart every day? How long will my enemy have the upper hand? Turn and answer me, O Lord my God. Restore the sparkle to my eyes or I will die. Don't let my enemies gloat, saying we have defeated him. Don't let them rejoice at my downfall. And even though David was being so brutally honest with God, because he was wrestling and acknowledging these things with God, he pivots. something shifts in this psalm, this prayer, this poem. The shifting, the pivoting is that as long as you wrestle with God and you acknowledge what you're going through with him, there's this divine awareness of the fact that he's with you. Because then David writes this to end Psalm 13, but I trust in your unfailing love. I will rejoice because you've rescued me. I will sing to the Lord because he is good to me. Like, I love this. God, where are you? Are you going to forget about me forever? But God, I trust you. I know that you've always loved me. And I'm going to rejoice because you've rescued me. Do you know that what David is doing right here is because he was being honest with God. He remembered God's character. He remembered that God is the God that saves. And so David, upon having his mind renewed, upon being transformed in his thought life, upon being reminded of the goodness and the faithfulness of God, what David did, not only was he brutally honest, but he started to declare his rescue even before he was rescued. Like, David had not been rescued, but he said, I will rejoice because you have rescued me. He wasn't rescued yet. But he thanked God in advance for the rescue that he was going to experience because that's who God is. David remembered that the greatest power he had was the presence of God, that God was with him. And I love that about David. He always journeyed from self to God. From self to God. And that enabled him and empowered him to move from despair to delight. From feeling alone to feeling affirmed. From feeling pain to expressing praise. That his moaning gave way to music. I want to just challenge you right now. Be real with God. Wherever you're at. Someone once told me, God's a big boy. He can handle it. in just short of words, God can handle what you're going to say to him. Because before you even say a word, he knows. He knows you. He understands. He gets it. So be real with him. But in being real with him, I challenge you, journey from yourself to him. And watch your whole perspective start to shift and start to change. Feel this new empowerment that comes as you journey from self to God, knowing that his presence is your greatest power. Because as we journey from self to Jesus, a wonderful thing starts to happen. Faith starts to build. Confidence is on the rise. Strength is starting to give us the ability to endure what we're going through. This beautiful happens when we move from self to God, from self to Jesus, because we're reminded of Jesus' words. That he said, I am the living one. I died, but look, I am alive forever and ever, and I hold the keys to death and Hades. You may find yourself in the valley of the shadow of death, but Jesus entered into death itself to defeat death, and now he holds the keys to death. He is king. He's in charge. He's in control. He's alive. Jesus would say in John 16:33, in the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I've overcome the world. And again in Matthew 28:20, Jesus says, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age. That his presence is our greatest source of power. That when we know that he is with us, we start living this life where we start asking the question, oh, death, where is your victory? Oh, death, where is your sting? We start building this confidence that, you know what, if God is for me, who could possibly be against me? And even though everything is what it's going on, it is what it is, and I get it, and I acknowledge that, I know this, that in all these things I am more than a conqueror through him who loved me. And I know that he's not only with me, but God is in me. And then you start remembering this and you start declaring this. You say, oh yeah, that's right. I don't have to be afraid because God, you've not given me a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And you start remembering as you journey from self to Jesus that the spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead dwells in you. And it fuels you to have a proper biblical, higher, Jesus-centered perspective on the valley that you're walking through. Because then you say this with confidence that, hey, I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to me. And finally, you say, you know what, even if this valley lasts a long time, I know that heaven awaits. I know that glory awaits. I know that I may go through pain, but I'm going to be living in paradise. I know that God's with me, but one day he's going to really live amongst us all. I know that one day this valley will end. It's not my destination. And you declare these words to your soul. You preach to your soul. You preach to yourself this, Revelation 21, verse 4, that he will wipe away every tear from their eyes. And death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. Your greatest power is his presence. And that'll get you through to the other side of the valley because you know your valley's not your destination. And lastly, the word of encouragement I also want to give you this morning is this, that your trial will be your testimony. That your trial will be your testimony. David concludes this verse by saying, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Like David concludes, beginning verse 4, talking about the valley of the shadow of death, like this is so uncomfortable. And yet David ends by saying, but your rod and your staff, they comfort me. A shepherd's rod was used to protect the sheep from predators. A shepherd's staff was used to wrangle in, to help steer, to help guide his sheep. That you know what? God's protection and God's guidance, it gives me so much comfort even in the midst of being uncomfortable circumstantially. Here, David, he moves from recognizing this is a trial to all of a sudden he starts preaching his testimony. He starts preaching his testimony. And I want to just encourage you with this. Your trial, whatever you're going through, it will become your testimony. You will, even though you're so uncomfortable, you will be able to have the strength and the confidence in saying, yeah, but I found this divine comfort in God. And though I wish things were changing, I'm good because I got the comfort from God and the peace of God that surpasses everything I'm going through. Go with me to 2 Corinthians 1, verses 3 through 7 with me. Listen to this. This is so powerful. Paul writes, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of mercies and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our affliction, so that we may be able to comfort those who are in any affliction with the comfort with which we ourselves are comforted by God." Let's stop there. That God is the God of comfort, who comforts us in our afflictions, so that with the comfort that we've received from God, we can comfort others. Skipping a little bit, Paul finishes this thought right here. He says, if we are afflicted, it is for your comfort and salvation. If we are comforted, it is for your comfort. Like, here's the reality of how Paul saw his hardships. He saw his hardships and afflictions as an opportunity to comfort others. God, why is this happening to me? Oh, wait a minute. Maybe this is happening to me because other people are going to go through what I'm going through, and when they go through it, I can provide the comfort that you gave me when I was going through this. Maybe part of why God has led you to the valley and has allowed you to walk through the valley is so you have a testimony to share with others who will walk through a similar valley that you walked through. And that as you experience the divine comfort of God, you're able to give the same comfort for those who are going to walk similar footsteps that you took during the valley. Charles Spurgeon is one of my favorite old dead guys to read from. Now, I say old dead guys not to be rude, but that's just a phrase that one of my mentors told me. He said, you know what, I do love the new writings with these new authors, but man, there's some potent power when it comes to old dead guys, because back in the day, they would spend hours on their knees, forming calluses on their knees because they were in prayer. Read for some dead old guys. Charles Spurgeon is one of my favorite to read from. Do you know that at age 22, this young Englishman had a mega church? At age 22, he preached to thousands. But do you know that Charles Spurgeon, who was nicknamed back in that day the Prince of Preachers, do you know that he suffered from depression most of his life? And when he was in his early 30s, his mental struggle was much more than mental. It became physical because he was never the same after his early 30s. He suffered from many physical afflictions. He was sick a lot. And yet, in one of his lectures, Charles Spurgeon said this: "It is good for me to have been afflicted, that I might know how to speak a word in season to one that is weary." That may be part of why you're going through what you're going through. Is yes, because this world's broken. And yes, God is so good, He's going to redeem it and refine your character. But maybe God is equipping you to speak a word in season to one that is weary. Say, hey, I get it. I was there. But this is how God got me through it. Charles Spurgeon also was recorded saying, "The sympathy of Jesus is the next most precious thing to His sacrifice." And in Hebrews 4:15 through 16, we read that Jesus, He's our high priest. And He's able to sympathize with us. Because Jesus, He bore the likeliness of sinful flesh. He became a human. He understands human frailty. He understands human weakness. And in this passage in Hebrews 4:15 through 16, it says that Jesus was even tempted in every way that we have been tempted, yet He's the strong one. He never sinned, but He knows the feeling of temptation. He knows the feeling of weakness, vulnerability, susceptibility, and our frail nature. We read in Hebrews that we have a sympathetic high priest, and that's why we're able to boldly go to the throne of grace. Not judgment, not condemnation, but the throne of grace to find mercy and grace in our time of need. He was well aware of the sympathy of Jesus, and that gave him the power that he had to preach not only of his trials, but of the testimony that Jesus was helping him get through the other side of his valley. I know for me, I've gone through some valleys. And I know that going through some valleys, I'm able to identify, I'm able to relate, and I'm able to comfort those who find themselves in a similar valley right now. I've gone through the valley of the prodigal son. There was once a couple years stretch where I was consumed by and built my life on reputation, performance, athletics, drugs, alcohol, sex. I lived that life. I was the prodigal son that said, God, I wish you were dead, so just give me my inheritance. I want to do what I want to do. But maybe just like the prodigal son, whoever's listening to this right now, you may find yourself in a spot where you're empty, you're hungry, you are still left longing, even though you felt every worldly pleasure out there. What's missing? I want to comfort you by saying, I get it. I've been there. I understand, I can relate, but I want to relay to you the satisfaction that you can truly have in God. That's found in Jesus. He is who you were made for, who you were created by. And he is who Jesus brings you to. He brings you back to God. He brings you back to your Creator who loves you, who reveals himself as a father. He wants to love you. So to the prodigal sons, like, I get it. I was there, but I want to relay to you God's satisfaction. Last year at this time, I wanted to quit ministry. I wanted to walk out of the church. Because last year at this time, our church split in Missoula. And it was a complex situation of personality differences and leadership philosophy differences and theological differences. But at the end of the day, like, there was resentment, there was bitterness, there was unforgiveness, and I just felt like collateral damage. And I was burned by church. I was hurt by church, and I wanted to walk away from church. So for some of you who have been hurt by church, I get it. I understand. Let me comfort you and say, I hear you. But let me comfort you also by not only relating to you, but relaying to you God's redemption. That I stand here a year later, being able to preach in my hometown, in the county that I grew up in. And I'm able to preach hope and forgiveness and love and redemption, because the church needs to hear that message just as much as the world needs to hear the message. Because we're all broken people, all in need of a Savior. Let me relate to you, but let me relate to you that God can redeem your situation and your circumstances, and He will use your valleys as a testimony. For those of you who maybe feel like you're going through the valley of the shadow of depression and anxiety, I get it. Cast off that shame that other people are putting on you, because that is a real mental state, and I'm not here to judge you or condemn you. I get it. Because of the crisis that I was in my previous church that I was a part of, I ended up having 6 panic attacks within 8 months. My hands were going numb. My face was going numb. My tongue went numb. I was hyperventilating. I couldn't breathe. I was suffering with anxiety and depression. I feel like some of you who've had this diagnosis of anxiety and depression issues, you've been judged. You've been shamed. You said, well, you just got to believe more. You got to have more faith. What's wrong with you? And I just want to come alongside you and comfort you, because I've walked through that valley. And not only do I want to relate to you, I want to relate again the fact that God is a God of peace and of hope. And I've experienced so much redemption and so much healing. And I know he can do the same. I know he can meet you where you're at. He does not shame you. He loves you. He's the God of all comfort. Let him comfort you. Worship team, you can come on up. Maybe part of why you're going through the valley is so that God can equip you to truly rejoice with those who rejoice and to weep with those who weep. That you're able to weep with those who weep because you have been there. You've walked through that valley. And the comfort that you have experienced from God, you're able to give the same comfort for those who desperately need that same comfort. Maybe God's allowing you to go what you go through to help refine you and equip you, not to shove truth down people's throats, but to share truth with sympathy, with grace, with understanding. If you find yourself in the valley of the shadow of death, just know that your trials will become your testimony. Your valley is not your destination. You may be feeling quite weak in this moment, but know that your greatest power comes from his presence, that he's with you. And if he's brought you to it, he'll see you through it. If he's allowed it, he'll give you the strength to endure it because he's with you. And just know that you may be going through what you're going through, to not only learn how to lean into him and to depend on him in greater ways, but you may be going through what you're going through so you are equipped to provide the comfort of God to those who are walking through similar valleys that you've walked through, that you may be walking through currently right now. He's the God of mercy. He's the God of comfort. God, we love you. And we're just reminded in these moments that even when things are bad, you are still good. That there is a plan and a purpose in the valleys of life. That you are a God who redeems and rewrites our stories and even uses what is ugly, even uses what was causing so much hurt in our life. That you're so powerful, so good that you can use it and redeem it, and we can share a hope, provide comfort for those who need hope and comfort the most. God, thank you that you are the God of mountaintops and you're the God of valleys. Thank you that we can love you and trust you fully because of your unconditional, relentless love for your people. We love you, God. In your name we pray. Amen.
Song kind of goes towards what he was just saying. When you look at or listen to Micah Tyler, who wrote the song, talk about why he wrote it, it was because his grandma had cancer and was fighting a really nasty battle, and he prayed every day for weeks that the cancer would be cured, that the whole situation would just stop. And instead, God answered, and his grandma lost the battle. And so then he changed his prayer to, instead of praying for the situation to stop, pray for the strength and the courage to be your perspective of it to be changed, and to pray to be different, and to pray to change your way of thinking. And I think a lot of us are going through that right now with this COVID-19, is that we're coming from a place where we've never felt such frustration and anger. And let's just pray to be different. I don't want to hear anymore. Teach me to listen. I don't want to see anymore. Give me a vision that you could move this heart to be set apart. I don't need to recognize the man in the mirror. I don't want to trade your plan for something familiar. Well, I can't waste a day. I can't stay the same. I wanna be different. I wanna be changed till all of me is gone, and all that remains is a fire so bright the whole world can see that there's something different. So come and be different in me. And I don't want to spend my life stuck in a pattern. And I don't want to change this world but lose what matters. And so I'm giving up everything because I want to be different. I want to be changed till all of me is gone, and all that remains is a fire so bright the whole world can see that there's something different. So come and be different. Oh, I know that I am far from perfect, but through you the cross still says I'm worth it. So take this beating in my heart and come and finish what you started. When they see me, let them see you, 'cause I just want to be different. Yeah, I want to be different. I want to be changed till all of me is gone, and all that remains, oh, is a fire so bright the whole world can see that there's something different. So come and be different. I just want to be different. So come and be different in me.
So I think if you're watching lyrics on Facebook, we're going to call an audible here and change up a little bit on you. I'm sorry, Johan and Joni, but sometimes you just got to do it. We're doing My Beloved.
Ready? There's a sun coming up in my soul, Lord, in my soul. There's a sun coming up in my soul, Lord, in my soul. I see the light, I see the light, I see the light, I see the light. Oh, thank you, God, I see the light. Oh, oh, beloved, bring me awake. Take me up to your resurrection place. My beloved, bring me awake. 'Cause I wanna feel your light on my face. There's a sun coming up in my soul, Lord, in my soul. And there's a sun coming up in my soul, Lord, in my soul. I see the light, I see the light. I see the light, I see the light. Oh, thank you, God, I see the light. Oh, oh, oh. My beloved, take me away over Jordan, up out of this place. My beloved, for you I wait, with you here till forever, face to face. There's a sun coming up in my soul, Lord, in my soul. There's a sun coming up in my soul, Lord, in my soul. I see the light, I see the light. I see the light, I see the light. Oh, thank you, God, I see the light. Oh, no more sorrow, no more pain, no more darkness weighing down on me. No longer blind, now I can see. Forever life, forever free. Yeah, I see the light, I see the light. I see the light, I see the light. Oh, thank you, God, I see the light. Oh, 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 oh.
Everybody, hey, can you just do me a favor right now? Can you click share to this video? This just really helps get the message of forgiveness, freedom, hope, and comfort out to our community and really communities across the world. So go ahead and click share, get this message out there, this message that so many people need to hear. Also, we're not going to do a prayer time after this service. It being Mother's Day, go ahead and just right now, go give your mother a call. Maybe try to tiptoe around some social distancing protocols. Love on your mothers, and happy Mother's Day. We love you so much. No prayer time today, but we will have it again next week. Love you, church. Hang in there. God is the God of mountaintops and valleys. If he's allowed it, he'll give you the strength to endure it. You got this in his strength. Love you, church.
There's a sun coming up in my soul, Lord, in my soul. There's a sun coming up in my soul, Lord, in my soul. I see the